Welcome to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. And this is a partial special edition because in the news we have Maul Shadow Lord review of episodes 9 and episodes 10 and an overall season review later in the show in the reviews section of this video. That will be later on. It has aired. It's been on out for more than 24 hours. In fact, I can tell you the episodes dropped here in Melbourne, Australia around I think it would have been 5+ hours ahead of schedule. So it was a different time of day for these episodes to be dropped. We usually get it about 5 p.m. here on a Monday, but it was, I think, could have been midday or a bit earlier than that. I'm unsure the exact time, but it dropped early in Melbourne, Australia. Anyway, to more news. Today is May. Well, today was, and sort of partly in the world, maybe still, I don't know. May the 4th be with you. Yes, and we will be in my view segment going through, which is later on the show, what happened and my thoughts on the Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, but May the 4th be with you anyway. And in some parts of the world, it's Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th. Which one it is going to be today or tomorrow. Anyway, to more news, Mandalorian and Grogu seems to be tracking at a lower than expected amount of money in the American market. I mean, the only way to really judge how big a film is and was and stuff like that is really the American market. And at the moment, between 70 to 90 million American dollars in the first opening weekend seems to be what is going to happen for The Mandalorian and Grogu. You know, I am going to be up for a surprise. I've got a small feeling it's going to be higher than that. But that is only a small feeling. Anyway, I'll just let you know that's the tracking between $70 to $90 million in the American market, the opening weekend. That's what it's tracking at the moment. I think it's going to be a bit more than that. I think it's going to just get just under 100. I think there's a bit more interest for this and the way they're advertising it, especially on YouTube and in the cinemas right now with the merchandise already available, like popcorn containers and the drink cups and stuff like that. They're really pushing hard with this film. And even posters, if you can sort of see around. The only thing I'll say when I see posters, especially of a film that is way in advance or, you know, a good couple of weeks in advance, to me, that's a little bit troublesome in the faith of the actual movie from the distributor, the owner of the particular movie. Usually means, my goodness, we need to advertise this to get people in their seats before it gets bad reviews. But that's only what I've noticed before, and it's not going to happen. I'm expecting a bit of a fun ride and wishing it's going to be better than I think. And anyway, that's my thoughts. And that's also the news. Now, let's get into views. Let me take a big drink with this one. Views is my viewpoint and or story idea with Star Wars. I accept the story for what it is. I accept it. From start to finish, I accept the story for what it is. Anyway, so this time around, it's actually a viewpoint on Star Wars Day, as we know, or May the 4th be with you. I'm going to say, without giving it a ranking, but straight off the bat, what do I think of it? The lead up is always a bit of fun. The day of anticipation is always a little bit of fun. But you know what really happens? A whole lot of nothing. This is a day that was just created because it sounds like may the force be with you. And it's a day that can be utilized much greater than it is. A really good time for, trailers or posters or something like that that's wow factor to be used on the day. Now, we did get a couple of extra spots with Mandalorian and Grogu, which, looks exciting, but, that's a little bit of old news right now in Star Wars 2026 today. The things that we would like to see is we've got a TV series, Ahsoka, maybe a tease for that, or even some sort of image with the Starfighter one that's coming out in 2027. That is wow factor for right now of May the 4th. That would have been great as a gift to the Star Wars fans. But all I sort of see, which is good, but it's like I see a lot of TV channels across the world, especially in America, with sort of people in their cosplay or people with their toys or things like that. And it's great to see, but it's just an underutilized day, especially by, the current owners, which I have no criticism for. I think Disney are fine. They pump out a good product. It's a little bit kid-like, the name Disney, but still it's a good brand. It has great movies. But all that really Disney had was release some more stuff on their channel about Mandalorian Grogu that's coming up, featurette type sort of stuff, and the ending of Maul Shadow Lord episodes 9 and 10. The finale was on that particular date. Maybe in some parts of the world a bit before that date. But I just think it's a day that should be utilized with something wow, that is new, that's coming up, and it just never really happens. But that's, it's a day that is still a bit of fun, but at the same time, not the greatest of fun. Anyway, so let's get on. That was views. Let's now get into reviews. Reviews this time around is going to be Maul Shadow Lord, episodes 9 and episodes 10. And then I'll give you an overall review. Straight off the bat, episode 9 gets a 7 out of 10. Straight off the bat, episodes 10 gets an 8.5 out of 10. Now let's get episode 9 was the introduction of Darth Vader at the end, which I thought that's what was going to happen with episode 10, which would have been a very interesting end if it was episode 10. But in episode 9, we see the coming out of the sort of fog-like sort of thing, sort of, almost like a horror, being, there was a fog and there was people were being pulled into the fog, and then he came out, revealed himself. Then we sort of had a partial Rogue One reenactment where he, lights up the blade without seeing the blade, but, in that red with the fog with it. That was just a little bit of a repeat sort of thing. And then also the fear that we, it was, there was a fear factor with the Darth Vader thing towards the end. It was really much an episode from just escaping the Inquisitors, which was great, but it was sort of like, it was just like holding on to time with, some great action sequences and some lightsaber battles. The only thing I'm going to say is that I think the lightsaber battles in animation, I'm not a big fan of, because it's so quick and so intense. You can't really find the simplicity of the passion of what's really happening psychologically. It's just, it's just intense strikes and stuff like that, which is great, but it's a bit robotic and a bit too quick and a bit too intense. But, it's still a bit of fun. But look, it gets a 7 out of 10, episode 9, because it was more of a lead up to what we were expecting to happen for the next episode, but we got that at the end of this episode, in episode 9. It still is enjoyable. It still was on track of enjoying Maul, Shadow Lord. And then we also had the introduction of the Crimson Dawn guy. My goodness, I keep forgetting he was in Solo, a Star Wars Solo, a Star Wars story. His name Voss. That's it. Somebody Voss. He was in it, and it was. I don't think it was the best take of what we got in Solo, a Star Wars story. It was visually sort of there, but voice, I wasn't taken by it, but it was okay. Anyway, so that's pretty much episode 9 of Maul Shadow Lord. Episode 10, I must admit, it was an adrenalized, if that's a word, build up with, Darth Vader and Maul and obviously the Jedis, Dak and Devon. And I thought it was a great episode. Like, it just really, you really felt it. You felt for the Jedi. You felt even for Maul. I thought the look of Darth Vader was probably the best version of animation I've ever seen. It just had the shape of Darth Vader the best. I liked that he had no words to say. It was something interesting. Just action spoke louder than words, and it's something interesting, but it also didn't really require words, because he was just there to get this job done and just really destroy these people. It was a little bit of a sad moment. Unfortunately, Dak was taken out, and then it was inevitable at that point, I think, Devon, the apprentice, to get emotional and and just be taken upon Maul. And there is spoilers. I should have said. Maul, by the end of the episode, she's ready. I thought that was a sort of good end. The way it ended was good. But it also, I question that, at the beginning of the season, they announced all of a sudden, like it was a new idea, that they were going to do a season 2. Well, obviously, the ending of this episode really does beg for a season 2. It just really does beg. So it needed a season 2. Because if it was only season 1 and that was ended there, it would have been a little bit an unfortunate end to some characters that were building up, and they were just cut off and we'll never hear from them again. So it was obvious that they were going to do season 2 from the get-go, because the way that the structure of the story, especially in episode 10, ended, it just begs for season 2. And I think maybe they had some tracking or some fan reactions that this is deserving of a season 2, or maybe they had this all along. I'm sure they had a version of season 2 anyway, but I just think I think it was a bit of a all of a sudden, the way they announced it at the start of the season, that it was going to have a season 2. We're going to do a season 2. I think it's inevitable. Anyway, it was an 8.5 out of 10. A very enjoyable episode. A lot of things that we've seen before, especially but the way, centered on Darth Vader, especially the way he was striking with his sword, the way that he used his presence and the music and the atmosphere, was really, menacing, really good. And it just really showed how powerful he is against even someone like Maul and even the Inquisitors. They really did become the shadow of the power of who he really, is. Anyway, so that is my review of the 2 episodes. Overall view, just to keep it simple without too much explanation, the whole series, season 1 of Maul Shadow Lord, for me, gets an 8 out of 10. I've averaged it to be that because it is definitely a rewatchable series. but there's going to be episodes that are not rewatchable. Like it's pretty straightforward, but it sort of lived up to what it was meaning, which was a menacing, a dark underworld sort of feel, and that's what was great. I don't think it was perfect. And nothing really is in life, but I would have liked a bit more psychology involved. One-to-one sort of type of thing. It used a little bit of it, but not stacks of it. But it was definitely a great series. 8 out of 10 for the whole series. Anyway, so that is my reviews in the review section of this show. Let's get into now interviews. Interviews is usually the questions I get on my last particular video. Now, because it was I was going to drop a reaction or review only about, say, 12 hours ago on this channel, but I thought I'd just hold off because the rest of the world was still in the beginning stages of May the 4th, and I thought maybe something significant may come out, and it really didn't, besides the whole lot of documentation of cosplay and toys, which is great, but nothing of significance like a trailer or poster or something like that came out. But anyway, the questions are sent to my last particular video on YouTube. Send it on the YouTube channel, and then we can interact away. I don't really have a Instagram running at the moment, and possibly in the future, but let's keep it simple. Michael from Werribee South, one of our favourites, has sent in a number of questions, and let's see what he says. Season 2 hopes. With the finale acting as a cliffhanger, what character are you most hoping to see next? Theories range from Kira's ascent in Crimson Dawn and more direct involvement from the Grand Inquisitor. Look, Season 2 for me, I think it would be the transition from Devon, who seems to be going to be the apprentice of Maul, the transition from that to Kira, who we got to see a little bit of in Solo, A Star Wars Story. I think that would be what I'd be most forward to in that storyline. I would like to see still a bit more of Darth Vader, but it really doesn't need it. This particular fight stands alone. His job is done, but at the same time, he did leave with a sort of like not really completely happy look without seeing a facial expression. Obviously, it's a robotic mask, but I think there could be a re-battle, and that would be good as well. So I'm really looking forward to the transition from Devon to Kira, the apprentices of Maul. So far, Kira apparently is not a part of the Maul sort of thing, but Devon is, and I'd like to see that. That's the only way you could do really Season 2, that story transition. Anyway, so the next question from Michael from Werribee South. As a lifelong fan, the complete lack of hype for Mando Grogu movie is insane to see. That's a comment. That comment is coming from Michael from Werribee South. He is a lifelong fan. The complete lack of Mando Grogu movie is insane to see. Thanks for being a lifelong fan and that comment. The next question or comment from Michael from Werribee South. Timeline consistency. How well do you think the finale bridges the gap between Solo and his eventual appearance in Rebels? Some feel the scale of his conflict in Coruscant makes later hidden status harder to believe. Well, at the moment, we're in the early stages of Maul in his transition into where we see him in Solo, A Star Wars Story, if that's what you completely mean. How well do you think the finale between the gap between Solo and his eventual appearance in Rebels? Look, there's quite a gap there. And it's good because there's a good chunk of time you can work with still a Maul sort of storyline. So I think, what do I think? I think it's traveling well where it's sitting right now. We're sort of getting a bit of a detailed sort of version of events, and that's what Star Wars does with its timeline. Anyway, so to the next question or possibly comment, proper response. What is the best way to reply to someone says, "May the fourth be with you"? Is it "and also with you," and you, and with you, or something else entirely? Wow, what a question. Well, the only way to respond to "May the fourth be with you" is "and may the fourth be with you too." Anyway, whatever you like. You could say, "This is the May." That's another take on events, which is "This is the way," which is from Mandalorian. So you could say, "This is the May," but it's up to you. The next question or comment from Michael from River South. The next day is May 5th, officially Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th. Yeah, so it's one of those, again, like May the 4th, an unofficial sort of day that's a bit of a play on words. There's nothing that really happens, especially on May the 4th, in my opinion, besides, viewing of people in their cosplay or their toys and things like that. May the Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th, with whichever one, it seems to be a bit of an echo of May the 4th. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Anyway, the final question, as I take a Mandalorian pill and a coffee, as I say, good morning goodness. The Shadow Lord persona. Critics on Reddit are questioning whether Maul is truly more than a villain. Now, as suggested in earlier episodes, or in the finale proved, he is still irredeemably evil. He's evil. Maul is evil, but he does realize his consequence of his own actions, especially when he was being the apprentice of the Emperor. And as soon as the Emperor knew that he was either dead or dying or useless, he abandoned him after, years and years of torture and training him to be a Sith Lord, apprentice. But he sort of gets now the consequences of that. So he does have a good side to him, but at the same time, he is evil. Maul is by name and by nature a Maul. He likes to maul, sort of like things in life. Sort of the name reflects to being very brutal. He is evil. He does realize his consequence to his actions, but that's life. And pretty much that is the show for this time around. This is May the 4th be with you day, or Star Wars Day. I do like it. Even my criticism of it doesn't get utilized that completely well. Please subscribe to the channel. The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week. In fact, in the coming days, I did say I was going to see Street Fighter 2 as a preview to the association I'm with, but it's actually Mortal Kombat 2, which I'm excited for either, but Mortal Kombat 2 probably a bit more excited as there's a bit more hype for it. I'm not a gamer, even though I like games, but this looks pretty good. So like and share this video if you like. Subscribe to the channel, as I've just said, The Force Awakens. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.